never thought I'd end up sharing something like this on Reddit, but here we are. A few months ago, I, 28F, discovered that my parents had taken the $120,000 set aside for my MBA and used it to help my sister Ashley, 35F, and her fiancé Nathan, 37M. Buy their dream house. I'm still processing the depth of their betrayal. The whole situation feels surreal. Let me take you through the beginning of this mess. My dad's parents, my grandparents, were quite wealthy and always emphasized the importance of education. They were old school in the best way. They believed in hard work, saving wisely, and planning for the long term. I didn't see them often because they lived out of state, but every time we talked or visited, they made it clear they cared about my future. Education is the one thing no one can ever take from you, my grandmother would say. The irony hits hard now. My grandfather passed away 3 years ago after a short illness. It was devastating, but Grandma was still here. She remained the glue of the family, remembering every birthday and milestone with thoughtful cards and care packages. We lost her last year too. On the day she died, I sat in my apartment reading through every letter she'd ever sent me at the time. I had no idea she and Grandpa had been building something far bigger for my future. But each letter usually contained some wisdom and a small check for your education fund. When their will was read, the distribution seemed fair on the surface. My parents inherited their savings and the family home. Ashley got the family heirlooms and all of Grandma's jewelry, worth tens of thousands. I received a substantial education trust specifically earmarked for my MBA studies. The will was explicit. This money was to be used solely for my graduate education. My parents were named trustees until I needed it, since I was already working. I was grateful that my grandparents had thought so carefully about my future. It never crossed my mind that my parents would touch a single dollar. Looking back, I should have seen the red flags. Ashley has always been the golden child in our family, as far back as I can remember. It's hard to explain without sounding bitter, but she was the one my parents adored most. She excelled at everything. She was talented, driven, and special in their eyes. I still vividly remember my high school graduation. I had just won a major science award, earned a full-ride scholarship to university, and was named valedictorian. When I looked into the audience during my speech, my parents were barely paying attention, scrolling on their phones. Later that night, when Ashley, who had already dropped out of college twice, announced she was thinking about becoming a teacher, they lit up. "You're just wonderful with children," they gushed. My achievements got a quick, good job, and a keep it up. That pattern continued throughout my life. I worked my tail off, graduated with honors, and landed a job at a prestigious firm. Over the last 6 years, I've climbed the ranks, earning respect from colleagues and leadership alike. As a senior project manager, I lead a team of 15 and oversee multimillion-dollar accounts. To my parents, though, I was always just the reliable one, the kid who succeeded because she was naturally bright. Ashley, meanwhile, bounced between jobs before landing as a kindergarten administrator at a small private school. Nathan is the head zookeeper at the local zoo, and they're decent people. I have no personal grudge against them. They seem happy and competent enough in their roles, but their combined income is modest at best. For the past year, they've been obsessed with buying a house. Every family dinner turned into a complaint session about rising property prices and how renting was wasting money. They'd sigh over listings far above their budget, lamenting how unfair the market was. Even though Ashley and Nathan are in their mid-30s, my parents still treated them like struggling youngsters who needed help. They'd nod sympathetically and say things like, "You deserve a beautiful home," and "It's so tough for young people nowadays." About a month ago, I started seriously working on my MBA applications. This wasn't a sudden whim. I'd been planning it for years. I'd researched programs extensively, positioned my career strategically, and maintained an impeccable professional record. I want to attend a top-tier school that will open doors to executive leadership at my current company. Every C-suite leader there has an MBA from an elite institution, and I'm determined to follow suit. One evening, I brought up the education trust with my parents. Application fees alone for top programs can run into thousands, so I needed to know exactly what was available. Their reaction was my first real warning sign. My dad shifted uncomfortably and muttered, "Don't worry about that right now." My mom quickly jumped in, "Just focus on your applications. We'll sort it out later." Then they swiftly changed the subject to Ashley and Nathan's house search. I tried to brush it off at first, assuming they were just disorganized with paperwork. But something felt off. A week later, I pressed the issue more directly. I explained that I needed clarity on the funds to plan applications across multiple elite schools. That's when they dropped the bombshell. "We used the MBA money," my mom said, as casually as if discussing the weather, "to help Ashley buy a house with Nathan." I stared at her, convinced I'd misheard. My dad chimed in, "Ashley needed it now, and it wouldn't be fair for you to get a free education when she struggled with loans." I lost it. I'm not proud of how I reacted, but it was years of bottled-up frustration exploding. I demanded to know how they could betray me like this, how they could steal money my grandparents had explicitly set aside for my education. That I pointed out that the will was crystal clear, and what they'd done was illegal. My mom just rolled her eyes, as if I was being dramatic. "You'll figure something out," she said. "You can take loans like everyone else." They acted like they'd done nothing wrong, like my future and my grandparents' wishes were disposable. When I mentioned legal action, do you know what they did? They laughed. They actually laughed in my face. "With what money?" my dad sneered. "You can't even afford a lawyer." My mom added, "Don't be ridiculous. This is family business." The humiliation was indescribable. I stood there, stunned, as it fully sank in that they'd always seen me as secondary, someone whose dreams they could sacrifice to prop up Ashley. They didn't value my independence, my thriving career, or my hard-earned success. I'd always be the runner-up in their eyes. That night, sleep evaded me. I kept replaying how my grandparents had trusted my parents to do the right thing. They never knew the full extent of the favoritism in our home. I never complained because it didn't feel like abuse, just unequal love. They weren't cruel. They just loved Ashley more. The next morning, I went to work early and asked for a private meeting with my boss, Mr. Thompson. He's been a true mentor since I joined the company, guiding me from junior roles to leadership. More importantly, he has a background in corporate law and strong connections with top firms. I also plan to reach out to my dad's cousin, Uncle Jake. He's a successful entrepreneur who always seemed to see through my parents' bias. He wasn't around much growing up, but whenever he was, he showed genuine interest in my achievements and ambitions. Plus, he's the only family member with more wealth and influence than my parents. When they laughed at my legal threat, something snapped that I'd always been the quiet, responsible one who never rocked the boat. They assumed I was powerless, but they were about to learn that the daughter they'd constantly overlooked had far more strength than they realized. First update: 2 weeks have passed since my original post, and events have moved faster than I expected after talking to Mr. Thompson. He offered full support and connected me with a colleague at Wilson & Partners, one of the city's premier law firms. He reminded me, "This isn't just about the money. It's about honoring your grandparents' intentions and holding your parents accountable." Meeting the lawyers was eye-opening. They confirmed that my parents had clearly breached the will's terms and their fiduciary responsibilities. The biggest shock was learning that criminal charges could potentially apply. Even more disturbing, the lawyers uncovered that my parents had started transferring funds to Ashley's account months earlier, long before they admitted anything to me. But Uncle Jake's involvement was the real turning point. He called me within hours of my LinkedIn message. His response exceeded anything I hoped for. "I always knew your parents favored Ashley," he said. "But stealing from their own child? That's unforgivable." He immediately took charge. "Don't worry about legal costs. I've got it covered." Uncle Jake didn't just talk. He acted decisively. He assembled a team of estate law specialists and hired a forensic accountant to trace every dollar. Within days, they had ironclad evidence showing my parents had systematically drained the trust over months. The first confrontation happened on a Friday. My parents' lawyer called, trying to negotiate a quiet family resolution, offering to cover some MBA costs if I dropped everything. Uncle Jake shut it down coldly. Either return every cent plus interest and penalties, or face criminal charges. No deals. Their reaction was priceless. They bombarded me with messages. "How could you bring outsiders into family matters? We were going to help you eventually. You're tearing the family apart." I forwarded everything to Uncle Jake's team without responding. Then he revealed phase 2 of his approach. Beyond recovering the money, he pushed for a full audit of my parents' finances, hinting at possible additional irregularities. Yesterday, Ashley finally reached out. In a long email, she claimed total ignorance about the money's origin. Mom and Dad said it was from their savings. She begged me to be reasonable, and find a family solution. I showed it to Uncle Jake. His reply, forward to the lawyers. It proves she knew after the fact and kept the benefit. She's complicit. This morning brought the sweetest moment yet. My parents' lawyer called Uncle Jake in a panic. The forensic accountant discovered transfers using power of attorney that began even before Grandma died. This dramatically escalates potential charges. My parents are scrambling. Mom left a tearful voicemail begging me to call, saying they'd find a way to repay. Dad emailed admitting they might have made a mistake, but insisted they were just helping family. Uncle Jake's advice, don't respond. Let them sweat. They mocked you when you were vulnerable. Now they get to feel powerless. All this has been possible thanks to Mr. Thompson's incredible support. He's written a glowing recommendation and already approved my leave for MBA studies. Today he told me, "You're handling this with remarkable poise. Few could manage it so professionally. Unless my parents repay everything plus penalties, the legal team is preparing formal charges next week." Uncle Jake predicts they'll have to liquidate assets to cover it. But as he puts it, that's their mess, not yours. I'm staying with a friend until this resolves. When my parents showed up unannounced at my building, security turned them away on my instructions. Uncle Jake even hired a PI to document any contact attempts for potential harassment evidence. Second update, 0.3 weeks since my last update, and things have escalated dramatically. The forensic investigation revealed far more than we anticipated. The first major revelation came during our initial court filing. Uncle Jake's team proved my parents had abused their power of attorney over Grandma's accounts in her final months, shifting money to Ashley long before Grandma passed. During the preliminary hearing, their lawyer's face was priceless. He clearly hadn't known the full extent and asked for a recess to confer with my parents. I later learned he berated them for withholding information and is now considering withdrawing. The biggest surprise came from Grandma's former caregiver. After seeing our legal notice tied to the estate, she contacted Uncle Jake. She revealed that Grandma repeatedly discussed the MBA fund with my parents in her final months, stressing it was only for my education. The caregiver had kept detailed notes of every family interaction in a daily log. Ashley's role has also shifted, interestingly. Once she grasped the legal exposure of receiving stolen funds, she hired her own lawyer. This created a major rift. My parents expected her unwavering support, but her attorney advised distancing herself. The house situation has become chaotic. The court is scrutinizing the purchase since the down payment came from misappropriated money. Ashley and Nathan's lender has been notified and is reviewing the loan. Potential fraud charges could follow if documents were falsified. Uncle Jake's team also uncovered that my parents had been telling extended family I'd agreed to let Ashley use the MBA fund. They'd been laying groundwork for months with this fabricated narrative. Now several relatives have come forward with emails and texts proving the lie. The depositions were deeply satisfying. My father tried maintaining his arrogant front until presented with the timeline of their calculated transfers. Watching him squirm while explaining was painful. For him, my mother broke down, admitting they never intended to repay what they'd taken. Their damage control attempts have been almost comical. Despite recorded conversations with Grandma and her lawyers, they're now claiming confusion over the will's language. This is their third attorney. 2 have already quit, and they're desperately pushing for settlement. Our legal team laid out non-negotiable terms: full repayment with interest from the date of theft, coverage of all our legal and forensic costs, now substantial, a formal written admission of wrongdoing ending the gaslighting, and a binding no-contact agreement. No more flying monkeys, fake apologies, or surprise visits. My parents' social standing is crumbling. Friends have quietly shared how stunned their circle is. Word spread rapidly in their community. Dad's golf club is reviewing his membership. Mom was asked to step down as bridge club treasurer. People apparently don't enjoy associating with parents who steal from their kids. Ashley's situation is deteriorating too. Her school's board has scheduled a review of her principal position over concerns about financial impropriety. Nathan faces an ethics probe at the zoo since he co-signed potentially misleading loan docs. The final satisfying twist: Uncle Jake's team filed to freeze my parents' assets to prevent further dissipation. Their lawyer called within hours begging for a settlement conference. Uncle Jake remains ruthless. When my parents tried appealing to his family loyalty, he fired back an email CCing the entire extended family. You forfeited any claim to loyalty when you robbed your daughter and laughed at her. My parents are growing increasingly frantic since I've maintained complete silence. They're resorting to third-party contacts, but each attempt just bolsters our harassment case. Their desperation is palpable. Third update. 4 months since my previous update, and I can finally share the conclusion. The final court proceedings delivered consequences more devastating for my parents than anyone anticipated. Let me walk you through how justice prevailed. My favorite moment was the last hearing, when reality finally shattered their composure. The judge was scathing in her summary, calling their actions a deliberate betrayal of both their daughter and their own parents' final wishes. She specifically highlighted their shocking moral bankruptcy in laughing at my initial legal threat. The forensic evidence showed they'd been planning the theft for over a year before Grandma's death, creating fake agreements and fabricating conversations about my voluntary gift of the fund. The premeditation made everything far worse in the court's eyes. The penalties were severe. Beyond repaying the full MBA fund plus compounded interest, they were ordered to pay punitive damages nearly doubling the original amount. The judge cited their malice and repeated deception of the court as justification. The poetic part: to satisfy the judgment, my parents had to sell the very house they inherited from my grandparents. No one missed the irony. They've downsized drastically to a modest rental apartment on the edge of town. Their social fall has been steep. Country club membership? Revoked. Community board seats? Gone. The network my mother cultivated for decades has disintegrated. Upper middle class circles apparently have little tolerance for proven child inheritance theft. Professional fallout has been equally harsh. My father, proud of his business reputation, was forced into early retirement. No one wants to deal with someone judicially confirmed as a thief from family. Former colleagues avoid him in public. My mother lost all her cherished volunteer leadership roles, including at their church of 20-plus years, where they were asked to step down from everything. They've become complete social outcasts, Uncle Jake observed. The most dramatic fallout involves Ashley and Nathan. Their dream house? Lost. When the lender discovered the tainted down payment, they pulled the loan approval. Ashley and Nathan now face their own legal headaches for knowingly retaining stolen funds. Ashley's career has imploded. The school board cited ethical concerns and eroded community trust in unanimously terminating her as principal. With the scandal circulating locally, she's struggling to land even basic teaching positions. Nathan was placed on leave pending the zoo's ethics review. His signature on questionable documents raised red flags, even if he didn't orchestrate the theft. The pressure proved too much for their relationship. Nathan moved out last week amid mutual accusations. He said she was too much like her parents. She said he abandoned her in crisis. Their engagement is officially over. Uncle Jake's strategy of comprehensive legal and social destruction worked beyond expectation. When my parents made one final plea for a family reconciliation meeting, he organized it, not for healing, but for accountability. He presented the full timeline of their deception, complete with forged documents and lies to relatives. The reaction was overwhelming. Several family members who'd initially tried mediating now openly condemned my parents. The meeting effectively ended any lingering support, culminating when my mother's own sister stood and said, "I don't even know you anymore. For me, I've emerged stronger. My MBA fund is fully restored with substantial damages on top. I was accepted into a top-tier program with a merit scholarship." Mr. Thompson's reference highlighted my resilience and integrity throughout this ordeal. My company has been incredibly supportive. Approved leave for studies and a guaranteed executive role upon return. "How you've navigated this proves you're ready for senior leadership," Mr. Thompson said. "Uncle Jake has become a genuine mentor, already connecting me to his network and discussing post-MBA investment opportunities. Your grandparents would be proud. You've shown real business spine." He told me I've moved into a secure, upscale apartment in a gated community. The concierge has my parents' photos and strict no-entry instructions. All their numbers and emails are blocked. Any contact attempts route straight to legal. The final delicious twist: their new apartment overlooks the zoo, Nathan's former workplace, and the symbol of where their downfall began. "Karma has a sense of humor," Uncle Jake says. Yesterday, an anonymous note arrived from someone in their old circle. Apparently, my mother rarely leaves home except for necessities. My father spends hours alone at a nearby cafe, staring into nothing. Their once-packed social calendar is now completely empty. As I prepare to start my MBA, I keep thinking of Grandma's words. Education is the one thing no one can ever take from you. She was right. Thanks to her foresight and Uncle Jake's resolve, I've not only secured my future but taught my parents an unforgettable lesson. This chapter is closed. Thank you all for the support throughout this journey. I'm at peace knowing true justice prevailed, even if I never wanted it to end this way.